What's up, everybody? This is Dan Thompson from RoundingAssociation.com, and this is the Rounding Association, the podcast for the Atlantic Division NBA Draft Review Edition. So the draft took place on Thursday, and so let's talk about the teams and the draft choices in the Atlantic Division. Brief overview of the division. There were three teams that made the playoffs and all won 50 games: Sixers, the Toronto Raptors, and the Boston-Celtics. And there were two teams that missed the playoffs and won less than 30 games, which are the Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets. Now, mind you, the Nets did not have their lottery pick as it was sent over to Cleveland, and I'll talk about what the Cleveland Cavaliers did with the 8th overall pick in another podcast. So the Nets were picking at 29. The Knicks had the highest overall pick in the division. They picked at 9. Boston was at their usual 27. Toronto, their draft choices, their first round pick was traded, and they didn't have a first round pick. And then you had the Philadelphia 76ers who picked at 10. And we'll get to all those teams, like I said, in the midst of this podcast. So let's talk about the team that had the highest draft choice in the division, which would be the New York Knicks. The Knicks were picking at 9. They took Kevin Knox in the first round and took Mitchell Robinson in the second round. Now, when Knicks fans were watching the draft, of course, there was one guy who was sliding down draft boards, and of course, you know, New York always loved to take the best player with the biggest name and the biggest headline, and that was Michael Porter Jr. The number one Porter Jr. was the number one player in high school. One of the most dominant players I've ever seen play. Never seen him play live, but of course, you know, you saw the tapes and, you know, watched him at the McDonald's game, and you knew that Porter Jr. was going to be special. He had a little bit of a back concern, but then 3 minutes into his college career, he injured his back. And he had to have surgery, missed the majority of the season, came back in time for the SEC tournament, and their one tournament game, which Missouri got eliminated. Porter wasn't really the same player. He hadn't practiced. He hadn't been with the team on the floor the majority of the season, and so, of course, you know, the rust was there, and the numbers weren't there. So in the Porter Jr. story, Porter Jr. looked really good in the initial workout, had a hip injury, canceled the second workout, and in all indications, he was supposed to be a top 5 pick. And even my mock draft before the draft, I had Porter Jr. at number 2 to Sacramento. Well, as draft day came along, more reports came out about the back injury, and it seemed to be worse than what it was, and in some cases, he was medically red flagged. For those who don't know how the draft lingo of medical red flag means, don't touch with a 10-foot pole. So Porter Jr. started slipping, and he fell into the hands of the Knicks, and the Knicks took Kevin Knox, small forward from the University of Kentucky. Now, Knicks fans are a little bit concerned, like, who is this Kevin Knox kid? Knox was one of the best high school players in the country, was actually down here at Tampa, worked out for the Magic, played 1 year at Kentucky. In the time I had chances to be around Kevin when he was down here working out for the Magic, he's a very, very smart kid. He wants to be a good basketball player, and he wants to learn. He's put on some frame, some size on his frame. He's around 6'9", maybe 215, 220-ish. He's a tweener, 3-4. He can definitely play the undersized 4. Can definitely have shooting range from out to deep. He is a very, very good scorer. Not much of a playmaker. That's the one thing. He's not much of a playmaker, not much of a shot creator. The thing with as far as playmaking goes, he only had 53 assists and 85 turnovers, and about, you know, almost 1,200 minutes he played at Kentucky. But here's the thing. This guy is a catch-and-shoot specialist. I mean, he knocks down shots. He hit 1.9 threes per game per 40 minutes in college. He knows how to come off screens. He can hit the jump shot very, very well, and he's still filling out his frame. When you look at Kevin Knox, a lot of his game reminds you of Tobias Harris, and that's not really a bad thing. Now, the reason why I think the Knicks didn't take Porter is the fact of, you know, Kristaps Porzingis is injured. You still have new coach David Fitzdale, and you don't know the situation of Porter. He could be out for a couple of weeks, could be out for a month. He could be completely healthy, or he can miss the entire season if he has to have a second back surgery. The Knicks really need more guys to be on the floor. And you want to be a competitive product because the 2019 free agent class is going to look really good with guys like Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving, among other guys that are from the New York area that would love to play for the Knicks, Jimmy Butler. Those guys you want to be able to have, you know, a good footing and a good standing when it comes to those guys. Now, as far as Kevin Knox goes, Knox can defend multiple positions. He can hit floaters. And really, he knows how to come off screens, and he can hit the mid-range jump shot. And so that's a lost art in the league and something that he can be very dangerous in a David Fitzdale system. And I think Fitzdale has one of the better young coaches in the league and also can coach young talent. Now, the guy I'm most intrigued with was Mitchell Robinson. Robinson was picked in the second round. I had him as a first-round grade. I thought, even in the pre-drafts mocks, I had him in the late lottery. In the first part, you know, the teams between, I'd say 15 to 20, I kind of thought that Milwaukee would be kind of interested in him. Robinson's 6'11", 215. He was a McDonald's All-American. The problem was he was supposed to go to Western Kentucky twice, and it just did not work. For various reasons, Mitchell Robinson did not end up at either Auburn or Western Kentucky like you're supposed to, and it didn't happen. So he missed an entire year of playing basketball, which, of course, of course he was working out, getting himself in shape, but not to have the competition for a year is not exactly the easiest thing in the world to deal with. But Robinson is 6'11". He's very long and has super talent. He has a wingspan of about 7'4", and he's very quick. He has very good bounce, and he has a good mesh of talent to use. Like I said, David Fizdale has coached guys, coach big guys. I mean, he coached Marc Gasol in Memphis. Not to say he's like a Marc Gasol, but he has tremendous athleticism, and he can also rebound and block shots. In high school, he was one of the best offensive rebounders and shot blockers that they had in the EBYL, which is something that Nike uses for their camps, and one of the best in the history of that combine and that talent. He also has the highest PER in that. In that format as well too. He reminds me a lot of Hassan Whiteside, and that's a really good thing. Now he has range out to the 3-point line, and he has a very, very long stride. Not a Mo Bamba stride, but he has a very, very long stride, which allows him to make up for defensive efficiencies. Now the question is, the question for him is that he's going to have to figure out how to be either a center or a power forward. Now, in the Knicks situation, he'd be a nice way to adjust himself into the league until Kristaps Porzingis comes back, because when Porzingis comes back, he's definitely going to center. The Knicks haven't figured out. The Knicks lost Enes Kanter because he opted out. He's expected to sign a long-term deal somewhere, just not in New York. But he did clear up $18 million in cap space, and Kyle Quinn's not due back. So Mitchell Robinson has a really good chance to really earn some minutes early on in the league. Like I said, with a chance to hit shots from the 3-point line, and like I said, the shot blocking and rebounding, especially on the offensive side, it screams Hassan Whiteside everywhere. And I think this kid is a steal. The Knicks got a very, very good steal on that one. And I think he's probably one of the best value players in the draft. So looking at what the Knicks did, they took the guy that's going to be on the floor in Kevin Knox, who I think is going to be very, very, very solid. Like I say, I don't think he's going to be a superstar just yet. I don't know if he's going to ever be a superstar, but he's going to be a solid pro, especially given the time. He'll get some minutes at small forward in the early part. And like I said, Mitchell Robinson is a guy that is a high risk, it's a low risk, high reward situation. So I give the Knicks actually an A. In this draft class. Like I said, Mitchell Robinson in the second round, I think it says is a tremendous value. And like I said, it brings that draft grade to an A. I know Michael Porter Jr. would have been the right fit for the Knicks and, the perfect scorer, in the very beginning. But just remember, you don't know about injuries. So if you don't know about injuries, you really just can't, make a tell of what to do. So let's go with the team picking with the second highest pick of the draft, which would be the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers had a couple picks in the opening round. The Sixers had 6 picks in the draft, and they did a lot of moving and shaking in this draft. They started with the 10th overall pick and had 2 first-round picks. They had this pick from in the trade from the Los Angeles Lakers last year, in the Fultz trade last year, they received it. So they actually opted in, and the Celtics will now have another pick next year because of it, which I think is a Sacramento pick, unprotected. I think it's the top one protected. And then with the 10th overall pick, they took Mikal Bridges, the perfect story. Hometown kid from Villanova. His mom works in the HR department. Everything seemed to be bright until later on, maybe 20 minutes after the pick was made. Mikal Bridges was then shipped out to Phoenix in exchange for Zaire Smith, a future first-round pick, which is the Miami 2021 first-round pick. So let's talk about Zaire Smith. So what Zaire Smith is going to be able to do is Zaire Smith is a guy who's superly athletic. He plays 1 year at Texas Tech, is a guy who's extremely long. He's actually right around 6'5", 199, can play multiple positions. He did play a little bit of point guard in college. He can defend all 3 positions. The thing with him is that he doesn't have all the offensive game just yet. He's not a very good three-point shooter. He only hit 18 three-pointers in college. Really one of the lowest usage rates of any college player that was in this draft class. Not very good creating off the dribble. And here's the one thing. He did measure 6'2.5" without shoes on, so it could be a little scary. He might play a little 2-guard position in the very beginning. And really, he's very, very raw. But the one thing about Smith is that he's an explosive athlete. He has tremendous bounce off the dribble. Like I say, he can play multiple positions, and he has a lot of intangibles. And Brett Brown likes guys that can make intangible moves and plays very, very smart basketball. He just needs a little bit more time and a little more development. This is one of those picks that it's going to take time. I don't think he's going to be much of an impact. At this early stage of his career, which is kind of good and kind of bad. The Sixers have a lot of guys right now in development stages. Timothy Leroux Cabaret, you have Furkan Comas. You have a lot of those guys at the swing position that are kind of developmental projects, and Zaire Smith is now one of them. Now, the 26th overall pick, they took Landry Shamet, a guy who I like, actually. He was worked out here in Orlando, a guy who's a very, very heady point guard, very smart. He can handle the basketball and also also hit some shots from the perimeter. He hit 44% of his threes as a sophomore. He actually can shoot the basketball very well, but also can be a very good ball handler. And the good thing about Shamet is that he averaged almost 15 points a game and almost 5.5 rebounds a game, 5.5 assists a game when he was at Wichita State. Now, what he's going to bring to the Sixers is that, well, with the point guard situation being a little bit kind of hazy, I know Ben Simmons is the primary point guard and a ball handler. But you have T.J. McConnell. You're not sure you get Markelle Fultz if he's going to play the point guard position. But outside of McConnell, they still need another point guard, even if they don't bring one back. I do love the Shamet pick. It's going to be a guy that's going to make he can make this roster. And I think he can actually be a very, very solid contributor, especially when they get rid of Jared Bayless in the nearest future, because Bayless's contract is going to allow them to chase that max player this summer. Second round picks, Kyrie Thomas. They picked him in the early part of the second round. Thomas was then traded to Detroit. They also drafted Isaac Bonga, a kid from Germany. They required in a trade with the New York Knicks. Bonga is 6'10", 180. All you're going to know is that this kid is going to be stashed overseas. He won't see the floor at all. Other picks included Ray Spalding. They traded him to Dallas, and then the final overall pick was Kostas Okonkwo, and he was drafted and also traded to Dallas as well too. So guess what? The Sixers don't really have much more than this, much more in the draft class. So really, for me, the draft class, I give the Sixers, I give it a C. The Mikal Bridges pick made my first thought make this to B- because Mikal Bridges is an NBA ready player, a 3-and-D wing. But then when you look at the Sixers, they have Robert Covington. You potentially going to add a small forward, whether it be LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, or Paul George sometime this summer. They're going to figure out something, but you don't want to add another small forward to kind of bury this kid. But Zaire Smith, he still has so much to work on. Once he develops and grows his game a little bit more, this might be a little bit of a low grade. But right now, like I said, the Shamet pick is solid. And like I said, what they did in the second round was really guys that they didn't get much in the second round. Like I said, Ray Spalding, Tempo are now on the roster. Isaac Bonga is going to be stashed overseas. Kyrie Thomas is now in Detroit. So those are the picks that the Sixers made in the draft. And so when you look at what happened with the other teams in the division, the Toronto Raptors, like I mentioned before, the Raptors had no picks. Kind of like the Miami Heat in the Southeast Division. There's nothing to really talk about in Toronto. Their pick, like I said, was gone in a trade, and so they had nothing to pick from in the draft. So let's get down to the Boston Celtics. The Celtics are picking at 27 in the first round, and they had a chance to take Robert Williams, a power forward from Texas A&M. Now, I had Williams listed in my top. Actually, he was a lottery pick to me. I thought he was going to go to the Clippers at 12, but there was some concerns about Robert Williams' maturity level. He just does not very. He's kind of an immature type of player from what the reports were, because you can even tell during the conference call when he was supposed to have with the team, he didn't show up. And when I say the conference call, is the media conference call that the player and the organization and the writers get together and have a sit down. The first meeting of the player, not the jersey ceremony, but the actual first time we talked to the player, and he did not. He no-showed, and it's not exactly the best thing in the world. At the same time, Robert Williams has one of those boom or bust potentials. He is a very, very talented player, but there's nothing he does outside of rebounding and shot blocking that's going to say, ooh, this is what we need to do. He doesn't score very well. Now, he does work very well in the pick and roll. He's a very good roll man and gets a lot of baskets between, grabbing rebounds and putting them back, as well as, as receiving alley-oops. He doesn't have very much creativity in the offensive game, and he takes too many jump shots. So he needs some time to develop. Now, his strengths, the guy is ridiculously strong. I mean, he's an explosive athlete. He can rebound at a high level and also can block shots. He was number one rebounder and number 3 shot blocker among guys on a permanent basis. And he's also an underrated player. Now, the good news for the Celtics is that you have guys like Al Horford, Aaron Baines. You have veterans who can help this kid learn and grow at the time. Is he going to make a high impact? I don't know if he's going to make one right away, but the Celtics have had very good late first-round picks, and they've developed them pretty solidly. Look at Terry Rozier. It took him a while, but Rozier's turned himself into a very, very key contributor for the Celtics, and he was one of those guys they took late in the first round. I think Yabusele is going to be one of those guys that's going to be very solid. So I expect Robert Williams to take some time to develop, especially on the growing up side of things. But to get a guy who I had in the lottery at 27, that just shows that the draft was a little bit unpredictable. But you got to give the Celtics an A for this one, because you got a guy I said at the top 12. One of the best, like I said, I have him listed as one of the best centers in the draft. I have him in the lottery. You get him at 27. And Brad Stevens can coach this kid. I really think this is a very, very good pick. So, you know what? I give the Celtics an A. The maturity level is one thing, but we're a locker room full of veterans. That stuff changes very, very quickly if you're really going to be successful in the NBA at this point. So, we've talked Celtics, we've talked Nets. We did not talk Raptors because it doesn't exist. And we all talk Sixers. So, let me know what your thoughts are. Follow me on Twitter at NBADT29. Also, aroundtheassociation.com. We went through a little bit more of a down period, but we're going to bring the site back up in about a day or so. There'll be a fresh look and everything going forward. Also, follow the page Around the Association on Facebook, and always subscribe to the pod, because we're releasing daily pods on a regular basis. And like I say, your division is coming up pretty soon. So we'll catch you guys later for the next version of the Around the Association podcast. Leave comments below, compare, pass, and share. Peace.